What's up guys, Cardog here, and today I'm here with a Digimon deck profile. Today we'll be going over the Hexeblaumon hybrid deck from BT-18. So with the support from the Tommy line that we have from BT-18, Hexeblaumon is a little bit better now. It's still a relatively fragile deck, and it does have a little bit of problem with the recovery plays, but at least with the hybrid support now, it's a little bit better than before. So let's get right into that profile. So let's start with the Digitama. So running 5, though you can cut this down to 4 if you want, but I still think the Bukamon comes in handy sometimes, especially when you don't have the Korikakumon for jamming. This one is like the next best option, but if you want to increase the consistency and just have the draws, you can cut this out for 4, or if you want to see this one more often, you can cut this down to 3 and run 3-1, but for me I'm just running 5 just cause. So yeah, let's go on to the main deck. So for the level 6s, we are going to be running the 4 Hexeblaumon from EX7. So this Hexeblaumon is still really strong. It's got security check +1, and it's also got ice clad, and on evolution you can rip 4 sources from any of your opponent's Digimon. And afterwards, if they don't have any Digimon with sources, you can bottom deck a Tamer. So the on-evolution ability is quite strong. And on your opponent's turn, all Digimon without sources cannot rest. So it's a pretty solid card, but it's just it is fragile. It doesn't have any protection. So your opponent can get rid of this pretty easily as long as they have any sort of removal. Except for battle, since you do have Ice Clad, and there's a high chance that unless they push out their stack from the raising area, it's not likely that they will be able to beat you in battle, because it's a good chance that you're going to rip most of their sources out on your turn. So it's pretty safe from battle, but from like bounce, deletion, digivolving, it's pretty susceptible to all that. So yeah. Next, for the other level 6s, we are running 2 of the Digimon Aces. So this is still a pretty good alternative to have, but if you want to run the old Hexeblaumon, you can run it at 1, and just like run 1 Digimon or something. But I like the 2 Digimons just because it does come in pretty clutch sometimes, especially if your opponent de-digivolve you, and then you are on a level 5, you can still Blast Evolve into this and de-digivolve them, and then do a stun. So yeah, it's pretty good. So its ability is on play and on evolution. You can de-digivolve 2 on one opponent's Digimon, and turn everything with all your opponent's Digimon with 1 or less sources cannot rest. And then on attack, you can pop something with 1 or less source. So it's still a really solid card. Downside is it is not a ice snow type, so it is not searchable with your Bluekomon, which is kind of the only problem. I think in future iterations of the Digimon, it'll probably get this trait later. Not sure, but it would make sense to get it. But that's fine. It's not too big of a problem. You can still search it with your training cards. So I think it's fine. And last but not least, we are running the 1 Imperialmon Paladin mode. This card is actually really good. Once you kind of rip out all sources on your opponent's Digimon, and if you freeze them well enough, you can just keep attacking your opponent. So it's pretty solid. One of them is enough though, just because we don't really have too much space. But if you don't like the Digimons, I guess you can cut this down for another Hexeblaumon from BT-5, and then run 2 of the Imperial Paladin modes. But I am a fan of the Digimons, so that is my lineup. You can feel free to test around. There is a few iterations that you guys can try. Next, for the level 5s, we are running 4 of the Hexeblaumon from EX6. So it's got Ice Clad, and on evolution you can trash any 2 of your opponent's evolution sources. And then if your opponent has no Digimon with evolution sources, you can unsuspend this Digimon. So this card is really good with the Korikakumon, as well as its own Hexeblaumon if you Digivolve on top of it. But now that we have a Korokakumon, you can just increase the number of attacks that you can do. Because the old one, you don't, the old hybrid stuff doesn't give you jamming, but the new one does. So that is actually a huge difference. So having jamming and Ice Clad just makes your attacks a lot more scary, because they can't die. They can't die from battle, pretty much. And then the inherent ability is if there are a Digimon with, if your opponent has a Digimon with no evolution sources, this Digimon with Ice Snow trait will get piercing and secure check +1. So works really well with the Hexeblaumon. Swing for 3 checks. And if your opponent has a rested Digimon, you can do piercing on that. So it's pretty scary. It's pretty scary. Next, for the other level 5s, we're running 2 Dipenmon. So Dipenmon is from BT-18. It's the hybrid level 5 for the Kubamon and Korikakumon. So its ability is from your hand, on your main phase, you can put a Korikakumon and Kubamon underneath one of your blue or red Tamers. And this card can digivolve on top of that Tamer for 3 cost. And then the second ability is Ice Clad, so it just has Ice Clad. And then on evolution, you can delete one of your opponent's Digimon with no evolution sources. So that's another really nice new card that you can have. You can use it to do some removal. So it's really, really solid. He's a pretty solid card. And then the inherit just gives you plus 2k on both turns. So not as useful because most of your stuff will have the Ice Clad. But if you do Blast Evolve this on top of your, like if you Blast Evolve Vikemon on this, that will be helpful because he does not have the Ice Snow trait. So he'll be able to still get some extra power. In case your opponent attacks into it, it'll be 14k at least. So yeah, I quite like the Dipenmon. Next, we are running 2 of the Zudomon Ace from BT-14. So we cut this down from 3 to 2 because we do want to run the Dipenmon now. But Zudomon Ace is still a threat. It's got on play on evolution. You can rip 2 sources from your opponent's Digimon, and then you can bounce 1 card without sources to your opponent's hand. So he's one of the ways that you can do recovery plays because he is only 4 costs. So it's kind of like a shortcut to just slap it down. If your opponent removed your stack previously, you still have another Digimon you can use, although you won't have a stack with it, so it's a little bit weaker, but it's better than nothing. So Zudomon is still really, really good. And then for the level 4s, we're running 4 of the Kubamon from BT-18. So on evolution, you can rip 2 sources from the bottom of one of your opponent's Digimon, and then on attack, you can digivolve into a hybrid spirit card for 1 cost less. And then the inherent ability is when this card will be removed from the battle area, but not by your own effects, you can put the Tamer from this card's source into the battle area with a pain's cost. So it's got the standard hybrid ability from the human form Digimons. So it's pretty good. We are running quite a few Tommies in this deck, so it's pretty good. Next, we're running 4 of the Korokakumon from BT-18. So it's got jamming, and then on play on evolution, until the end of your opponent's turn, one of your opponent's Digimon without any evolution sources cannot rest until the end of their turn. So quite good. And the inherent ability is also just jamming, so it just gives all your stuff jamming, which is, it gives the stack jamming, which is really good. So we're running 4 of those. And then for the last level 4s, we're running 4 of the Paledramon from EX7. So on evolution, you can rip 2 from the bottom of your opponent's Digimon, and afterwards, if your opponent doesn't have any Digimon with sources on the board, then you can, this card gets jamming and blocker. So what the play before was that you evolve into this one, you attack, and then you digivolve into the Paledramon afterwards, the Cursed Paledramon afterwards to suspend. But now you don't have to rely on this one to get the jamming, because you have the Korokakumon that can give jamming as well. So yeah, And then for the level 3s, we're running 4 of the BT-18 from EX7. This one's just on play, look at the top 3, reveal the top 3, and then you can grab a Hexeblaumon or a Hexeblaumon card, and you can grab a Ice Snow trait card. So now that we're running a lot more Ice Snow trait Digimon, this card is a lot more consistent, so it's pretty good. And then on attack, you can just the inherent ability is on attack, you can just rip one source from the bottom, from the top of one of your opponent's Digimon. So, yep, BT-18 is a lot better now, just because the consistency increased by a lot. And we're also running 4 of the Hexeblaumon from BT-14. This one is just makes your guy unblockable, and you can rip one source. So I think Hexeblaumon pretty good. He's also like a pseudo recovery play, because when this card would be deleted on your opponent's turn, you can place him back out. It's a pseudo recovery play, but not really. I'd rather keep my stack. But having a card on the board is better than not having a card on the board. Alright, next for the last level 3 is running 2 of these Snow Agumons. So this one just is Ice Clad, and it's got on the inherent ability is on attack. You can rip the top source from one opponent's Digimon. So this one's pretty good. It's a lot better with the BT-18, because if your opponent has a Digimon without any sources, you can just feel free to tag with them, and if your opponent has a blocker with no sources, he'll die to the Snow Agumon. So Snow Agumon is pretty good. But we're only running 2 because we are saving some space for some more Tamers, and so we're only running the Snow Agumon at 2. Next, we are running 4 of the Tommies that we're running 4 Tommies. So this is the BT-7 Tommy. We're not running the new Tommy just because that one's not really suitable for that deck. But Tommy is super good in this deck still. On play, you can just rip 3 sources from the bottom one opponent's Digimon, and then the inherent ability is on attack. You can choose one opponent's Digimon without any sources, and they cannot attack or block until the end of the turn. So Tommy is still really good. So this is just a 3 cost to hard cast, and then if you check in the security, you can potentially hinder your opponent as well. So Tommy's just really good, and he's just a target for your hybrid stuff to Digivolve into. So I quite like Tommy at 4. If you want to cut it down to 3, you can, but that definitely decreases the consistency by a lot. Just because the new hybrid stuff requires you to Digivolve into Tommy specifically to be at 2 costs. If it Digivolves on top of Joe, it'll be 3 costs or 4 costs, so a little bit more expensive. And Tommy just synergizes well, especially since with the Hexeblaumon source, if you attack like this and then he dies on your opponent's turn, you can still play this out, and since he is played, you can rip sources back out. So yeah, Tommy is good. Next, we are running 2 Davis. So Davis is here instead of the Sora and Joe. I found Sora and Joe to be a little bit redundant in this current format, just because a lot of times if your opponent is smart, they'll play over it, and they just won't let you get the extra memory. And I think having a setter is just more reliable. And it also helps that this card can help you search for your combo pieces. So I quite like Davis over the Sora and Joe now. I think he just offers more value overall. But it's still good. It's if you want to run the Sora and Joe, that's fine. It does help rip sources from Digimon that will be unaffected by your Digimon's effects. So that's one way to get rid of sources. But it's kind of up to you to see what is popular in your meta. If you have some really big stacks and stuff that just is not affected by Digimon effects, you might want to use the Sora and Joe to rip the sources. If not, then running the Davis is fine. And next, we're running 2 Joes. This is also a slot that you can use for Sora and Joe instead. But I quite like Joe. Joe is effectively a 2 cost to hard cast. So as on play, you can just rip one source from an opponent's Digimon, and then on your turn, whenever a source is stripped from one of opponent's Digimon, you can rest his Tamer to get 1 memory. So Joe is pretty good. And then for the memory, for the consistency boosters, we're running 3 of the mental training. If you want to run blue memory boosts, you can, but currently space is a bit tight, so I only have the space for the trainings. But keep in mind, you can't use the training to digivolve your Tamers into the level 4s, because it specifies one of your Digimon can digivolve into a card for 2 costs less. So since your Tamer is not a Digimon yet, you can't use it. But most of the time I'm using it to digivolve from 4 to 5, so that's fine. And we're running 2 of the Howling Memory Boost. This slot is flexible. One of you guys suggested I run this over the Sodai last time, and so I'm currently testing this out. It is pretty handy. There are situations where the Sodai is better, but there's also other occasions where you just need to stun that one Digimon, and then you can effectively use your other user memory for later. So Howling Memory Boost is also quite good. So yeah, this is a flex slot. You guys can kind of play around and see what you guys like. If you want to add more consistency boosters, that's perfectly fine as well. But that's pretty much it for this deck, guys. I quite like this deck. I think it has a lot of potential. It just needs a little bit more work. A lot of people are splashing the Hexeblaumon into like other blue decks, so Hexeblaumon is a strong card, but it's just that the deck that he is currently the main character of in right now is just a bit fragile. But I think it's got a lot of good selling points and a lot of hindrance, but the deck is a little bit slower compared to some of the other decks in the format right now, so that is one of the problems. But I think once you get things sorted out and you can stun more efficiently, it does get pretty annoying for your opponent. So that's pretty much it for this deck, guys. Hope you guys enjoyed it. If you guys have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below. And yeah, that's it. If you guys want to support the channel, feel free to use the affiliate links in the description box. And yeah, subscribe for more Digimon content. This is Karataku, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!